Great. And I said, the thing you're going to learn in college that is going to matter the most is learning how to learn.
Ooh,
Because
that's good.
what you learn is
Mm,
going to be out of date, probably by the
mm,
time you graduate.
love it.
But your ability.
There's one thing I value. It's real talk. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here and we're just going to just dive right on in. I have Darby Westfall with me here and I can't wait to go through our standard questions. Like every guest comes in and gets the same questions on this season of Real Talk, and Darby and I've been talking offline about like just having genuine conversations, and Darby is a data person. And so I love that she's here on Real Talk with us. And obviously, pivots are really a real data thing we do. This is a different type of pivot. So everybody knows the score. Every guest gets the same set of questions. We're going to do our best to go through every single one of them. But if we're having a real good conversation and some real talk, we're not going to just stop for the sake of getting to the next question. So before we hit those questions, Darby, tell everybody about you.
All right, Robin. Well, thank you for having me on Real Talk. I love the premise of Real Talk and the fact that we're just going to talk.
Yep.
So yeah, I've been in the IT space since college, which in my college, I could only get a math computer science degree because straight up computer science was not even available. That's a
Okay.
little dating, but that's the truth. So yeah, so between um, starting out in IT from the very, very beginning and where I am now, I've just never left the field. I love that it changes. I love the pivoting. I'm the one who loves change, and so
Okay.
that's helped. Be in the right field for that because, as you know, the IT world has changed so many times.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So most people don't really love change.
Yeah, I don't know why not. I was that kid who always loved it when you showed up and the teacher had rearranged the desks. I was like, "Whoa, cool, great." I don't
Let's
know,
do
the
something new.
smallest things. Yeah.
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 I think, and I don't know, maybe we can get into this, but like I think sometimes it may be like you finally got everything kind of worked out and like you just want everything to kind of stay even keel. I was never satisfied with that either. So I don't think it was
No,
like that I love change, but I did love being able to do something different.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the mundane same thing every day is just it just doesn't light my fire. Yeah.
Mine either. Mine either, for sure. We have that definitely in common.
Yeah.
So, again, like, I really hope that one thing that people will take away from our series here is that we all face moments in our career where we have to make pivots, and I think if you work in tech, like, you're gonna pivot a lot. And I
Absolutely.
know yeah, early on in my career, my generation, we grew up with, you go work for a company, you work there for 20, 30 years and,
Got
and
the
then
watch.
got the watch, all the things.
Mhm.
But in reality, when I like actually got into my career and I was in tech, we would move around a lot. Like you had to move around to get exposure and experience. And so job hopping was kind of frowned upon. But like in tech, if you could job hop a little bit, you got a little bit more skill set than somebody who didn't
Yeah.
job
Yeah.
hop. So
Well,
pivots were a big
and
deal for
then
me.
so much changed in the corporate space where it wasn't stay here 25 years, get the watch.
Yeah.
It was you're running your own 401k, your insurance is your choice. And, all of the dedication from both sides kind of weakened. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. It's probably a
It
little bit
was
of
what it
both.
was.
But it has definitely changed the landscape
Yeah, for
of
sure.
the way people see their jobs in
Yeah.
many cases. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I never was, again, never was really offended by someone who moved or made adjustments along the way. As long as those adjustments made sense for their career, to me, it was
right.
like, okay, well, I can see why, like you would make this move to this move to this move. And again, I think that just happens a lot in tech, but it's really technically a pivot. So, Darby,
Right.
what was one of the first career pivots you can, like, what is an early career pivot you can remember?
Well, aside from starting work, I mean, going from school to work is a pivot we all make.
Yes.
And, I counsel young people in school all the time to look at their employer carefully
Yeah.
because I really lucked up. My first job was with an employer that put me through intense training and their education, their ability to educate me was so valuable and so unexpected. And it wasn't until I looked back and would have said, that would have been a good choice. But for me, it was just kind of random. And so I tell people all the time, getting out of college, look for a place that is going to try to educate you, that they're not just leaving you to yourself. I mean, you still need to be self-educate. You still know how to self-educate.
Yeah.
But if you can pick an employer that has a career path and sees you on it, you're making an intentional decision like that is a good idea.
Yeah.
But then, so probably the biggest pivot in my employment life was when I was working for, I don't know, I guess we can say company names on this podcast.
I would say it's up to you. I mean, I would
Yeah.
probably not. Just
Yeah.
just
They're
yeah.
only sort of even there anymore. But anyway, I was working for a company that was acquired by another company. And so my position was about to move out of town. And
Okay.
that was just not a fit for my life. We were very stable, kids in
Yeah.
school, husband's career, all those
Yeah.
things. And there was just no way I was going to move out of town. And so I decided, and we decided as a family, because it was kind of a family decision, that at
Yeah.
that point, I was just going to start a consulting company because my kids were young and I love working. I've always loved
Mhm.
IT. I love data. I think in data. I see the world
Mhm.
that
I know
way, for
you
good or
do.
for
I know you
ill. I
do.
absolutely, everything's a pattern in categories. And
Yeah.
so I just said, well, I'm just going to give this a shot because I really want to work, but I also want to raise children. And that
Okay.
window is small.
Yeah.
They come and go so quickly. So Mark and I decided, I said, well, if we're just going to eat peanut butter, if this doesn't work, we'll eat peanut butter. We'll make it, as
Yeah.
long as we can stay in the house. Like this is just, you set these, limits. So at that point, and that was in 2000, I started Leapfrog Systems Consulting and it just worked. Thank
That's
heavens. It
awesome.
just kept working. Different partnerships helped along the way. That was
Mhm.
huge. And so I was able to just get different projects and get that change I love.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, even when the technology would stay stagnant for periods, and then there'd be a big change, and then stagnant,
Yes.
and then a big change. Kind of like right now, AI is the big change we're all looking at, and
Yes.
we could spend a whole entire podcast on that.
Yes, we
But
could.
even during those times, where you've got, maybe 8 years of somewhat stability, you're looking at
Mhm.
relational databases and la la la.
Mhm.
The change was consulting with different companies. So
Yeah.
you take that knowledge you have and go learn how this company operates, what they do, how they do it, what's important, that language, and that to me was just so much fun. Just
Yeah. I think
being
this
able to
is
turn around.
why I just feel naturally drawn and connected to you because I love that aspect of the job.
Yeah.
Going in and
Yeah.
seeing, like, to me, data is a very living thing. I realize it's inanimate and it's like whatever, but to me, it's living and I can watch it mature and move. And if I can capture that into some kind of process or procedure, I can impact great change.
Right.
And then
Right.
I can then tell it to do other things. And then I could do other things with those other things. And I can remember pretty early on, like you were one of the first time I had encountered. I mean, I've worked with spectacular women throughout my career, but you were one of the first women you understood like relational database design and we could talk in table design and you had
Mhm.
lucid diagrams, I think. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we like I still use lucid. I'm pretty sure it was you that introduced me to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I feel connected to you in that way because again, when you see the world in operational blocks like that, and diagrams. Like, it's, you don't meet everybody in the world and they're like, oh, let's talk over an ERD. Like,
let's
that's
just,
sweet.
just
That will
let's just
be.
talk about how
It's
that
just
works.
how do you feel about relational database design? But I mean, I could talk about that all day long. So I
Oh
think
yeah,
that early exposure in my
yeah,
career and also in your career definitely helped us with being able to determine solutions today, right? Like, I know I've seen ton of industry, tons of different processes, tons of different companies, and what is consistently the same as data is data is data.
yeah. I used to walk into when I would first get an engagement with whatever company for whatever purpose. It was just, can I just reverse engineer your database? Because if I can see the data, I'll know what you do. I can skip you trying to teach me because you're going to be ambiguous, even though you don't realize it.
Yes.
But the data is going to kind of lock things down, and that would always be my just give me a few days, and
Let
then I
me
can talk
reverse engineer it.
intelligently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I love that reverse engineering comment because I think that is a gift and a skill set in and of itself. You can you can teach people how to normalize things. You can teach them the rules. You can talk about how to develop business rules, but there are certain people that they learn better by breaking it apart and then
right.
attempting to put it back together. But I've found throughout my career that not everybody has that patience or whatever the flag is that you need to just go, let me just go reverse engineer that. Like, you either think I'm going to reverse engineer that, or you're like, I don't even know where to begin,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So what are your thoughts on, like, how much do you reverse engineer things to learn? Is it a lot?
It was a big part of my early career. I don't do it so
Okay.
much anymore because
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at things a little bit differently. But back when were trying to make a major modification to some system, you know, I, I just needed to know how the data worked.
Yeah.
I pretty
Yeah.
much, I pretty much always, if once I get into a company, if there's data and there's already a system, if we're not going in and building something new, right now there's a whole lot of new with AI and it's a little
Yeah.
different animal. But prior to that, it was just give me a few minutes. Let me just
Yeah.
reverse engineer it and I can just have a conversation with you, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and ask you some real questions about, okay, I see it is in here. What is this? Yeah, I think there's
yeah,
just a lot of value. So again, if you're somebody who doesn't mind tearing apart the thing
yeah.
and trying to
And
put it back together in your brain so you can ask those questions, I think that's a great way to get started. So oftentimes people are trying to figure out, like, how do I even know what I know? Well, look how far you can go with reverse engineering something.
yeah, yeah,
They'll
yeah.
tell you a
And you
lot.
can see the relationships between all of the elements of the business. Okay, you've got
Yes.
customers. Okay, well, how do they relate to the thing you're selling or the thing you're building or whatever,
Right,
and you
right.
should just start seeing all those relationships, and that just sort of builds up the fabric of the company, and then you can
Yeah,
move from there.
yeah, and then the gaps, like,
Yeah,
where is this data?
yeah,
So
and
I
the things
found
that you'll
this.
figure out that somebody else doesn't even know, and you're like, "Do you realize that
Yeah,
because of this, you got this, you know, either risk or opportunity or whatever it is,"
yeah, I
and
love that. Either risk or opportunity
yeah,
is a very
yeah,
diplomatic way to handle that. That's good for anybody listening who's trying to figure out how to phrase sometimes we have to have hard conversations, right? Like,
yeah,
and it is a risk, and depending on who you are and how well received you will be, that whole risk or opportunity is a good catchphrase. I hope people will pick up on that and attribute it to you. Talk about, and again, I don't think we talk about this enough. Have you ever faced a pivot that you just really didn't want to? You're like, you're forced to pivot, but you really didn't want to. Like, anything come to mind?
there was, and this is it's a little subtle, but there was an opportunity at one point in my career, about mid-career, and I was being offered a position that was an advancement. they was going to move my career along, and they were going to. And I frankly did not want to do it. I didn't really want to get away from technology. I didn't really want to get into just the management piece. I always wanted to
Okay.
be kind of closer to the tech. And what my boss told me at the time was, if you don't do it, I'm going to give it to this fella, this other guy. And it wasn't that he was a guy, it was just a person. But I
Yeah.
knew this person pretty well, and I knew what he knew and what he didn't know. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't know what he needs to know to do that. And now I would have to work under that scenario. So I just had to go, I thank you very much. I would love to do that.
Okay.
Um, you know,
Interesting. So the idea, yeah, that's an interesting dynamic to
it really
navigate.
was. It
Yeah,
was.
that's
I
fascinating.
didn't, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's good for people to think about. Like if you're faced with this option or this option and the other option is you go to work, because the role, obviously the organization was saying this role has to be filled. And it's
absolutely.
gonna be
The role,
filled by either
yeah,
you or them.
right,
And
right.
if you're gonna
And
be here
yeah, and
yeah,
it's
interesting.
tricky to choose when to take a promotion. I mean, you really need to
Yeah.
look at that company and determine where do I want my career to go?
Oh, that's
And if
important.
that promotion's gonna take you a different direction for where you see your own personal self and what you really want to be doing, the company may want you to do it because you're gonna be good at it. It's gonna be fine, but
Oh,
you
yeah.
may or may not wanna do it. And sometimes you have to anyway because you don't like the alternative, and sometimes it's a great idea, but just I think a lot of people get promoted for reasons that benefit the company,
Mhm.
and sometimes they think they are doing the most wonderful thing for you because they think this is what you're going to want. But you need to decide for yourself what you really want.
That's great. This is where our data brains torture us,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I'll say it this way. I find it incapable for myself to focus on only one thing. So, like, you bring this career changing opportunity to me and you're gonna give me this. I immediately go, well, there was that, but then what about this? And what about this? And have we thought about this? And,
yeah, yeah,
it makes it hard to like navigate some decisions. But I almost wonder, like, how many people would just be like, okay, well, it's better money, it's better benefits, and I don't want to work with this person. That I don't want this person to be my boss. Like, that's kind of short sighted if that's all you're doing. But if you're looking at it as, where does this fit on my career trajectory?
right.
And it comes with all of these different attributes. That's a little bit different than just looking at 3 classic data points and then making a quick, dirty decision. I just wonder how much of your data brain impacts those types of decisions you've made throughout your career.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to know because you don't always sit and think about it that way.
Yeah.
There is a feeling. There are feelings to it. It's like,
I might actually sit around and think about it that way, but thankfully.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well,
pretty
you
awesome.
should, one should definitely be very intentional about it. And whether that's intentional because it's data or it's intentional because it's a gut feeling about what you want to do with your life. But I think in general, just being aware that the decisions you make, they're only a handful.
Mhm.
When you're really young, you feel like that just you've got forever and lots of decisions, but
Yeah.
really, there are only a few points you can look back and say, "Oh, that pivot was trajectory changing."
Yes.
And to
Yes.
recognize that ahead of time, I think you can have a better chance of pointing that in the direction you want.
Were you always, from the time you were able to remember, were you always thinking ahead of your career? Like, were you always being strategic? I know some people are. Me, like, I just all of a sudden landed in all these great places, and I would love to say I was strategic when I was 19 and 20 and 25. I wasn't.
No, that's what I was saying with that first job. It would have been a great strategic move, but it wasn't that. It was just getting a job.
Okay.
And it wasn't that, which is why I try to tell young people all the time, I feel like I got lucky. But you
Yeah.
don't
Okay.
have to get lucky. I'm gonna tell you, you should
Yeah.
really evaluate your future employers on these points and make a decision based on that if you can. I mean, the other thing is girls gotta eat, if you can't
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you just have to take a job because it's what you got.
That's your constraints. Yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
right. That's
But
right.
try to look for those things, and if you
Okay.
have a choice, try to ask those kinds of questions and find out about other people that work there. Are they getting those sorts of opportunities and yeah.
Yeah, definitely if you're making a pivot, it really does give you a super opportunity to explore. I know when we have our boot campers come in and we're working with them, and especially if they're in a mid-career change or they're starting their careers,
Mhm.
they sometimes think they don't have any power over themselves, right? Like they're at the mercy of whoever will just bring them in. And I'm like, well, right now you're not anywhere where you want to be. You're going somewhere. So you really actually have more power than you think you do. And it is time to explore those opportunities because you're facing a pivot, right?
Mhm.
And I think it is important to look at like what you want in your career. Like you talked about raising your kids, same thing for me. I knew that the job that I was choosing for myself was going to be hard. I knew that there were going to be some days where maybe I might be a little bit hungrier than other days, but I knew I was going to be home when my kids got off the bus at 3 o'clock. Knew
Mhm.
every
Yeah.
day. I also knew I was going to be working till 7 or 8 o'clock because I had to get them off the bus, take care of them before I could go back to work. But it did afford me the opportunity to be there, like, when they get and which was really, really important for me because when they were about 6 or 7 is when I became a single mom,
Mhm.
and so then it was significant that I was able to get them to the bus, make sure I was home to get them off the bus, and
Yeah.
listen, the day they learned to drive to school, when they would just come home, so, they were home from their and they were in their car, I was like, "Yes, alright." But
Oh,
it
just
was,
got a
but
little
it was
easier.
strategic for me too. Yeah, I was like, I needed to do something because at that point I'd been working in corporate America in a large organization, and my children were, they weren't infants, but like 2 or 3, I was starting to realize that getting a little punished if my kids were sick. And I was
Mm.
spending a ton of time commuting, and I just always felt like I was disappointing my employer because I was trying to raise kids that were 11 months apart and they were 2 and 3 years old. It's really, really
Mhm.
tough.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's stressful, it puts pressure on you because you do wanna do a good job. You wanna do a good job for the employer, and you wanna do a good job for your kids, and it's very hard to do both.
it is. It is. And then
So,
you throw in
yeah.
tech. And tech in those days, Darby, now we've been around a little bit, like we've seen massive amounts of technological change in our careers when tech was a lot harder.
Absolutely.
Tech's a lot easier today. It's harder to get into it and it's harder to know where to specialize, but like the tech itself is a whole lot easier than back in the day, wouldn't you agree?
Well, it's certainly I mean, the logistics are a lot easier. I mean, there was a day when you're just wearing a pager and you're literally getting up in the middle of the night and driving in,
Pager.
to the raised floor computer room to talk to the computer operators to say, "Well, what did you put in the
Yeah.
JCL?" And you don't like, I mean, I don't know who your audience is going to be. They're going to be like, I don't know what she's talking about. But,
Yeah.
at least the idea that you used to have to literally drive in the middle of the night when something broke. And that
Yes.
now almost never happens. Now you might have to get out of bed and log in, but you don't have to get in the car and drive
So
somewhere.
interesting. Like, I've had so many guests on here, but, like, you just made me realize, like, I can remember when we didn't have VPNs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't
Oh,
just
yeah.
VPN into a network. Like, that's what you're describing.
Yeah.
You could then we were so excited. RDP, was so groundbreaking, right? Like, because we could use
Yeah.
remote desktop to get into our
Yeah.
networks. Like, we weren't even thinking
Mhm.
about those days too, like, I think when we were getting VPNs and RDP and all those things, I don't believe we were streaming videos yet. Audio
I don't
hadn't
think
been
so.
figured out yet. I don't even
Mm-mm.
think we had the transparency of imagery yet. Like, we were still debating GIF or GIF. We definitely were not talking about PNGs and transparency and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you think
We're
it's
gonna be dating
easier?
our audience.
Yes.
So,
But it's good. Like, I think that's important because look how much change,
I
like,
do
we've gone through a
too.
lot of change.
I do too. I was talking to some college students yesterday at the Birmingham Women in Tech meeting,
Oh, good. Love
and I
BWIT.
said, "Yes, I know it's great." And I said, "You know, the thing you're going to learn in college that is going to matter the most is learning how to learn."
Ooh,
Because
that's good.
what you learn is
Mm,
going to be out of date, probably by the
mm,
time you graduate.
love it.
But your ability to break things down and learn them and research for yourself and teach yourself, let that be what you focus on because
Oh,
that
I
is what
love
you're going to
that.
keep needing, especially if you stay in tech. But really,
Yes.
every industry, I think, is moving partly because of tech and partly
Yeah.
because of whatever else they're learning. You know,
Yeah.
the building on the shoulders is happening everywhere. So what you learn today is, it's probably not going to be the same thing that's going to matter
Yeah,
so
it's gonna
much.
shift. Yeah,
Hmm.
and in tech too, you don't learn everything. So
Yeah.
not only does it shift frequently and now at real rapid speeds, but you don't learn everything and you have to be able to endure having gaps,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not going to really understand how all that works, but I still have my part in it and I got to know enough to be able to do my part. But sometimes
Right.
people have to feel like in our classroom, it's like, okay, we learn to read as A through Z, right? Um, and then we learn that those letters make words and those words make sentences. And I tell them like that's not how tech is. You're going to learn A, F, L. You're going to come back around, learn E. You're never going to know M. Nobody cares if you understand L as long as this person understands L. I think that's really
Yeah.
important to break that down for people when they're learning. And
Yeah.
definitely agree with you that the ability to learn. I think one of the things that we can sometimes make a mistake on is the concept that you go to school, you learn, you go to this part of your school, you learn, you go to this part of your school, you learn, and then you go to work and you're supposed to have learned everything that you need for work. And
Hmm.
it was like nothing I learned.
Right.
Like I learned a bunch of stuff that I use all the time at work, but like I didn't. It just didn't work out that way.
Uh-huh.
I learned a whole brand new set of stuff, and then it's tech, and so it was constantly changing. And I realized,
Hmm.
well, I gotta stay like if I'm gonna be able to do this job, I gotta know what's changing and stay a
Hmm.
year or two ahead of it all the time. Now the
Right. Right.
year or two is like 10 minutes.
Right. Right. Which is the other point that I make a lot with these people. And I was telling those other people yesterday is, if you know 10% or 30% of your job and there's an opportunity just a little further away and you don't know everything about it, orient yourself there and go that direction.
Yeah.
Because if you stay in a place where you do know everything, you're going to be pretty irrelevant pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So don't be afraid of that thing that you don't know all about. You'll learn it.
you
If
will.
you've learned how to learn, you'll learn it, and then you'll continue to make yourself more and more valuable.
Yeah.
And
And
I
if you
just think
don't
that's
learn it,
key.
yeah, and if you don't learn it, it was likely you didn't need to because somebody else had that role,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So when you work in
yeah.
tech, it's like a multidiscipline sport, right? Like you have people that specialize in different things. I just think it's not even until you figure out where you're going to specialize or where you're going to really dive into something, it's really hard to know where is the stopping point?
Right, right.
Where do you reach where you go, okay, now I know that this is where I'm gonna stay. I'm like, I haven't figured it out yet. I know it's
No, I don't
data.
there's no staying. There's definitely no staying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. So I love it when I learn things that just blow my mind or break my expectations. And I've asked everybody to talk about like when have you learned something in data or with data that just spectacularly broke your expectations?
I think early on, and it continues to repeat, the biggest surprise that I come across all the time is the amount of ambiguity that people have and don't know they have.
Okay.
Like I can
Mhm.
remember early on somebody saying, we just want to increase the profitability by region or something like that. And I'm like,
Okay.
okay, let's talk about it. What's a region? And you get 3 people in the room and they would give you 3 completely different answers,
Yes.
factually, conceptually, they're coming from their point of view. It's
Yes.
either the states the salesman covers, or it's the place where we develop the thing, or it's where we get whatever it is. I'm like, well, it's gonna be hard to get this answer right until we agree on something. And you're all right. It's not that anybody's wrong. It's just that we're ambiguously using a term and don't realize
Mm,
it.
yeah. Gotta put some
And it's just,
rules.
just that pushing people to, forcing them to say, I do know what you're saying. But I recognize that you're all saying different things. And gently try to get
Yeah.
you to understand that you've got a this region and you've got a that region and you've got a that region. And which,
Yeah.
if any of them are we really focused on? So figuring that out has been it was a shock early, and it keeps happening over
Oh,
and
it
over
doesn't
and
stop
over. Any
happening.
conversation, it's
Every
like
one of them.
we can talk about it, but if we're going to really make moves, we're going to have to be really clear
Yeah. Yeah. And
in
I think you and
describing
I maybe
things.
kind of talked a little bit about data governance and data lineage. And I love those conversations. I love the fact that you bring different stakeholders into the room and you say, okay, so we have this report and it shows this thing and it distinguishes this one from this one. So what's the rule? And
Right.
it's like, well, this is the rule. No, 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 this is the rule. Nope, no, no, this is the rule. And so yeah, and then you do get
Yeah.
into some expectation setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
That's when you
okay,
smile and you say, we're going to need a whiteboard.
we're gonna need a
We're gonna
whiteboard.
need a whiteboard.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to draw this
Yeah, then
out and
I
help
swoop
you.
in with we're gonna have to determine when the life of this data begins
That's
because
right. That's right. The
it
life and
can
death of that
vary.
thing.
That's
Mhm.
right, because it would like what we see with our customers in this process of starting very practical and with any of their data points that are master data. It's like, okay, yeah, at this point, this is what that means, and we've captured it here. But then when it's in transit and it moves into this process, it does mean
Mhm.
that, but now it also means this.
Mhm.
And then we know
Mhm.
it's here and then it divides. Like, I could
Yep.
geek out about that all day long. If somebody would just it's like, I just love to just talk about lineage of data and the life. And my customers hear it all the time. It's like, all right, where does the life begin? Because
Mhm.
it has a life cycle. And if you can hook into that life cycle, then you can flow it where you want it to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't help them if you don't really understand it, and sometimes they don't know that they don't understand it as well as you and they need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always I will sit down and go, okay, just get your coffee. We're going to go through 1,000 questions because we've
Oh,
got
I
to understand
know.
this thing.
I know, but we compete with the software sellers. Like, I don't sell software. Like, I don't think we sell software designs and things like that, and we work off platforms, but I don't think Leapfrog sells software really either. We do
No,
services,
right.
and I know for our customers, we're like, no, you don't need to go make that $100,000 software investment right now because we don't even know what any of this means yet. Let's figure out
Yeah,
what it means. Let's get the
yeah,
ETLs worked out. Let's get all
yeah,
this diagramming. It's not sexy work, but
yeah,
it is some of the most powerful work that you can do to get ahead.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but like if you're not a
yeah.
regulated industry, like you see me come in, I'm like, let's talk about data governance, and you're like, and then where's the lifespan of this data? You're like, what data has a life? And it does, but again, we have a lot of private industry that's not regulated, and so they haven't had to be compliant with this. But now they're trying to leverage AI, and the lineage of their data and the governance of their data is going to play a big factor in how successful they are. So,
Right.
where are some opportunities for you to go back into your career and talk about where you broke someone else's expectations with data?
So, aside from the clarification, I mean, what we typically do in those scenarios is you're breaking their comfort zone of understanding their own environment. They're
Mm,
really good with it, and then you're kind of like, okay, let's walk through this thing. Let's walk through the process flow. We had one customer years ago, and he said, "What we do is really complicated, and I frankly don't think we need to automate it. We're trying to come up with some cost." It had to do with nuclear fuel states of
mm,
inventory, states and
okay.
volumes of inventory. So again, we're like, "Whew, I'm about to learn about nuclear fuel." Did- Didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And their process was very complicated. The way they were calculating the cost of these items with this last in, first out, la 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 la. And they actually said, "We've had people try to do this before and no one's been able to do it. I don't really think you're gonna be able to
Mm,
do it."
You're like, challenge
And
accepted.
oh yeah. I'm like, okay,
Mm,
well, if you can describe it, I believe we can do it. But you have to be able to describe it.
right.
And we went through multiple iterations, and I know they thought they were describing it, and I would walk away going, I'm missing some things. There's some things
Mhm.
that have not yet been said. And if I can't think about it logically from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E, I can't fix it. I can't do the thing you want us to
Yes.
do,
Yeah.
and bless their hearts. I go, "We're gonna need one more meeting. We're gonna have to get back together one more
Yep.
time, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring some more people, and maybe you can bring some other people because I need you to say it in a different way." When you
Yeah,
got
okay.
something that you're just so unclear about anyway, you ask me to question the answer and say, I'm not quite getting it." It's like, I don't need you to say it louder. It's not that it's not a hearing problem. I need different words until I can say it back to somebody that's I understand it.
Yeah.
And we got there. We got them to finally fully explain it, and we did finally were able to build the thing they were wanting, and it was a super satisfying
Oh, I love
solution.
that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great. It was great, but it just took a long time to get them to help us understand because they really had a great deal of knowledge, and I'm huge about respecting their knowledge.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think that mutual respect of your thing, and I trust that. I believe that, and it's amazing that you know that, and I need you to tell me just enough of that so I can help you.
I love
You
that,
know?
Darby. I think that's some really good insight for a lot of people, because sometimes we are specialized in an area, and then we need help from another specialized area,
Mhm.
and technical people love y'all. I am one. Sometimes we bring our specialties to the party, and we're not really listening, and we're not really hearing. And if they're trying to explain something complicated and they're so focused on the problem they think they want you to solve, it can lead to some communication gaps.
Mhm.
And luckily for them and you're thoughtful enough to go, I need a little bit more, without, I mean, we've heard it all. You've been in this game a while. Like, they're like, people disparage like the customer's inability to communicate. Like, well, stop doing that, because we need them to communicate with us. If they could 100% communicate everything, they wouldn't need us.
Yeah, I do remember early in my career watching some of the IT folks be just really, really they just did not respect the knowledge of the
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah.
and the customer didn't know what they know, but they didn't know what the customer knew.
Yes.
And I would hear things. I'm like, that you're just really not getting it. And
Yeah.
in most companies, IT is an expense anyway. So these people who
Yes.
do know the thing, they're probably bringing the money to the company.
Yes.
They know their part really well. And
Well,
the
we're
more
going to
you
keep
can
it
learn
real
about
here.
it, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to keep it real here. And there is always a friction between, well, not always, but early on for sure, there seemed to always be friction between the business units and the technical side. And it's like, but the way you would know about it is because, well, we can't bring this to our IT team. We can't bring this to our IT. We need you because we can't work with the IT team. They're too busy. They don't understand us. And it's like, I can't do a technical project here if I'm not working with your technical
Yeah.
team. And like, we got
Yeah.
to bridge those gaps. But I think it's that not respecting that knowledge. Like, I worked in nuclear too, and it's hard not to have a huge respect for people who design nuclear plants with pencils
Yeah.
and paper that generate nuclear power. It's like, I don't care what you don't know, because I could never do what you just did.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
every type of
You got
engineer known to man, like, yeah. And,
right.
but, put a Word document in front of them, and it was like, yeah, I don't care that you don't know what that document does. You keep designing your nuclear plants. We'll figure out that whole Word
Yeah.
document thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Don't worry about
Yeah.
that.
You've
I like
probably
that.
been in the same scenarios I have many times, which is just that interpreter role
Yes.
of listening to the business, interpreting that in data frequently. Their process flows in data and they work together, right?
Yes.
It's data on the move to get the systems to work together and then to, integrate that with an IT team.
Yeah.
The other stake I put in the ground all the time is there's no magic. There's no magic in computing. It may look like magic, and that means you've done well,
Yes.
but nothing is really magic. Even a magician is not really magic.
That's right.
It's an illusion, and you have got to understand how things work to make
So how often do
systems.
you lean into when you go into clients and they're pivoting, right? They're pivoting to a new software or to a new process. Like, what's your go-to advice to them when they come to you and say, "Hey, we want to do this"? I mean, do you lead with governance? Do you talk about process and procedure? Like, how do you start an organizational pivot like that?
Yeah, well, in today's world, there's so much new going on with AI, and most of
Mhm.
my customers now, there's something. In fact, I'm selecting customers who are doing things with AI because, like I said, orient yourself to the new things going on.
Yeah.
That's where everything's going to be. So I've got a client right now that from the time I started with them, I'd say they've pivoted at least 3 times
Okay.
because they're figuring things out.
Oh, I
They're
love that.
like, "Oh, okay, maybe it's a better idea if we do this." And then, yeah, they called today and said, "We've got a new idea." I'm like, "Okay, is that a parallel idea? Like you're going to keep doing the other thing and now you're going to add this as kind of a different line of business? Because I don't see why you have to pick. I think you could do both."
Oh, I
They
love
could
that.
kind of
Yeah.
feed each other. So now it's more a matter of business consulting first. Like where's the
Yeah.
value? Who are the customers? That sort of like kind of startup consulting. Whose
Yes.
problem are you solving? Are you sure you have an audience? And how are you going to price it? How are you going to
Yeah.
deploy it? Who's going to deploy it? Who's going to maintain it? It's much bigger. Like let's think about this as a bigger process, not just well, here's what's happening with like vibe coding. People
Mhm.
can make things look like they work when they only partly work. The whole big picture's not there.
Yeah.
And I think as sort of seasoned
Yeah.
people, we can consult with a company and go, that vibe coding solution is a great prototype. If you love it,
Prototyping. Yes.
then absolutely is a great prototype. But let's just remember that if you're going to put this out, you've got to think about all the edges and how the whole thing works together,
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
ready for that.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you made a prototype it's not yet a business. It's a prototype.
Yes.
How are you going to support it? It's going to change. It's going to grow. There's not software out there that hasn't been modified pretty quickly. It just keeps getting better. So
Yeah.
how are
Yeah.
you going to keep maintaining? Just all of that stuff. I feel like now that's kind of the role starts with the business and the business, value proposition and
Yeah.
how it's going to work at a higher level.
So I do think it is interesting to have this conversation with you and hear your framework for that, what you just described, which is prototyping and partially functional situations. We'll call them situations because they end up being situations if you're not thoughtful. I love the idea of vibe coding, and I love the idea of fast prototyping, and I love all of that. But we've been dealing with bad software design forever, where people are trying to prototype quickly. I learned pretty early on, like some people would show up with this, like literally, it was only the front end, and I would say, I would like to see the back end of your system,
Yep.
so I could
Yep.
like explore, like, how am I going to be able to report on this, and what kind
Yeah.
of, because I'm like all geeked out over this whole new front end that shows up, and I'm thinking this is it, and then I realized there's no
what's the
back end.
model of the back end? Where are you storing
Where's
this
the
data?
back?
How's this thing working? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I literally left a meeting. This is very, very early on in Think Data's history, but I literally left a meeting. I had been in this meeting, like I'd gone to 3 separate meetings about this front end and this great design. And I just finally had to press the person and say, look, I really want to help you. Like, you're asking me to help you write reports, but I like have to write reports on a back end. And so you either have one or you don't. So could you just tell me, like, where is the back end? And I left there and told Daniel, like, I refuse to have another meeting with this person until they show me a database so I can see where, if we're putting this data in, where is it going?
Yeah.
And so I think really today, I know artificial intelligence has changed the game up on the way we can build and we can vibe code and we can prototype effectively. And there's so many benefits to that, but has it really changed the game all that much? Or are we just going to see just an explosion of bad software? Got any predictions on that?
Oh, I have all kinds of AI predictions. So I don't know when AI will reach a point that the vibe coded solutions. Now, I completely believe that AI coding platforms are helping people code faster.
Absolutely. I'm for
I'm
all of
not.
it.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not doubting that for a minute. It's the
Mm-mm.
full vibe solution that I think is. It'll be a while before that is really fully baked
Yeah.
and supports all the edges of the main one thing you're talking about doing.
Yeah. Well, I
But
think if
I'll
you have
tell
a former developer vibe coding a solution out, I can see that being okay at the end.
right, because as
Right.
long as they're using a vibe coding tool that lets them get in and edit things,
Mhm.
so when they
Mhm.
hit the wall, they can go fix the thing that the vibe
Yeah. Yeah.
coding front end doesn't let them touch. What I fear, and I'll say this, I've said this on a million soapboxes, and I'll say it again. I fear that the advent of the coding platforms is allowing a lot of companies to skip over bringing y- new young folks up through beginnings of codings to become experts. The
Mhm.
experts are
Yeah.
able to do more
Mhm.
faster, but they
Mhm.
will grow up and leave.
Mhm.
And if we
Yeah.
didn't plant any new plants,
Speak it. Yeah, I'm for that. Yeah.
then
We're in
then
trouble.
we're going to be in trouble because nobody's going
Mhm.
to come out being an expert and be able to fix the things that are broken because they didn't know how to actually code line by line and understand how to debug and understand
Yes,
all
that
those things that
debugging.
you learn so
Mhm.
early.
Mhm. By
You know,
breaking
but
things when it was hard.
mhm, and
Yeah.
and by giving yourself the little cookies so that you could say, okay, here's this, here's this, here's this, and you could, follow your code. I worry about that. I worry
Yeah.
that
It's a true concern. I'm glad you're worried about it. I will
yeah.
speak my approval of your message there. Yes.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah. I think
significant
companies need
problem.
to be hiring entry-level programmers and teaching them and not
Mhm.
skipping that step. That's kind of the bottom line is, come on.
Yeah, don't skip that step.
Look, don't skip that step because you're going to need these folks. If,
Yeah.
you're going to need them.
You
They're
will
going to need
need
to
them.
know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and depending on the community, because wait, like I have a worldwide audience, but like depending on the community that you're in, and let's just say in the United States nationally, like for every one data analyst you see by 2030, you're supposed to have 3. So if you have 30, that means you're supposed to grow to have 90 by 2030. Newsflash, that's 5 years from now. So like you really need to be starting now. And that's just data professionals, right? And it just kind of feeds all the way through. But we were
Mhm.
having this discussion. Obviously I speak to a lot of people all the time, and I was having one last night, and they were saying, we're very concerned about the entry level position, like this artificial intelligence, not just in programming, but just across the board, feels like it's going to hurt entry level positions. To which I said, well, our job as people who are supposed to be leading companies and building the workforce is we're going to have to change the definition of an entry level position and go ahead and let's figure out what we're going to do for entry level position. Like if we're all saying the entry level is going to go, like the entry level can't go. We have a whole workforce that has to be employed. Like what in the world? We
Well,
can't,
yeah, that
can't
part
do
too.
that.
But even if you could do that, you'll be sorry because
Yep.
if you don't
Right.
grow people and they don't learn things,
Mhm.
they can't be experts. So you just can't rely on having experts.
That's right. I love
Yeah.
that, Darby. That's really, really good insight, and you're not alone in your thoughts on that. I do worry about the impact to the workforce, but what concerns me mostly is like what I was just saying. Like we know we have a problem now. Everybody expresses it out loud, but I feel like there are very few people saying, "Okay, well, let's just change up entry level positions and let's just decide what the new bar is so that at least universities, workforce development programs, and people could like have a new bar to obtain so that we can start preparing. Because if we don't get ahead of it, it's going to move really, really fast, and it can be damaging to our workforce, to our economies, to our business.
Mhm.
But then also, like everybody's going to be trying to get everybody's talent.
Mhm.
That is
Mhm.
also not a good. It's good for you if you poach somebody's talent, but that's not really a good way to build your ecosystem and your community
Right. Right.
to go that route. And I'm afraid we're going to see it come. We'll see. Maybe you can help redefine what an entry level position could look like in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're
Okay.
getting close to the end here. I want to take you through one of my most favorite parts of this series, which is what is your data point. Every guest gets to bring their own data point. Everybody's brought wonderful things. So, Darby, what's your data point?
So, I talk a lot about bigger business processes and about, you know, trying to contemplate your deployment plan and all that for software in general. But really, when the rubber hits the road, it's a matter almost always of measurability.
Mm,
What can you actually measure and how do you measure that? Make sure we're all in agreement. There's the expectation setting and measurability go hand in hand.
oh yeah.
And
Okay.
that's where you get success, right? It it
That's
it
awesome.
does it's all about meeting expectations. Early in my career, well, maybe midway, I came into a job and there were some folks there saying, "This is what we want to do. We've got this project and we want you to do this project in 3 months. And this is the content of the project. And here are your resources. And, good luck with that." It was brand new. And
Yeah.
I looked at these people and I said, "I plan to be here in 3 months. And I don't want to be looking at you then and telling you sorry. I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
right now, there is no way. Let's reevaluate. You're either going to need
Okay.
to." shorten the scope, extend the time, or add a lot of resources because you're not going to get this thing done in this amount of time with these people. And they were just kind of blown
You're
away.
such
But
a
I'm like,
data.
I can't pretend like it's going to work. I can tell you, your eyes are just bigger than your stomach here. There's no way this
Yeah.
is going to work. So anyway, that we did shorten the scope dramatically. We met the deadline. They, became fans. Turned out great, but it has to do with setting that expectation. And setting the expectation for a project is one thing. Setting the expectation for an impact or a result usually has to do with measurability. And so if you're talking to a company and they're like, we want to, increase revenue. Okay. Are you measuring revenue today? Revenue's a little easy because most people are, but
Yeah.
often it's a
Yeah.
little more nuanced.
Mhm. Mhm.
We want to increase productivity. Like, okay, how do you measure how are you going to know if
Yes.
you met that goal?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
What is it going to be? And do you have something to measure against? Have you been measuring it, or are we just now starting?
Yeah.
Like turning that into a number. If you really want to know what percent you increased, you got to know what percent you started
Well,
and what
yeah,
percent you are.
baselining. Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta baseline it out. I
yeah,
love your data point, and I love the spirit behind it because you are a data geek for real on every level. It's out. Like, I already knew it, but now everybody knows it. Like, I don't know if you even know it. Like, you process everything through the lens of data, whether you're realizing like
yeah,
measurability is definitely a data analytics thing to
yeah.
do. Why do you think sometimes it's hard to create something? Like, if it was really easy, we would lead with it. So why do you think it is so hard to come up with when we know we need these things and we're trying to impact change? Why is it hard for people to come up with measures? Like, they turn to us to help them develop those measures. Why do you think that's such a challenge sometimes?
Well, I think sometimes it's a little bit of an afterthought. You're busy building
Uh,
your business, whatever it is. You're
okay.
building widgets, and you're looking at the things that are easy to measure: cost of materials, the price you're going to sell it at,
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Mhm.
Those things are fairly easy. And then when you get a little more mature, you go, okay, are we doing this the most efficient way? How do our competitors do it? Do they have the same size staff? Are they, are we as profitable as we should be? And then you start looking at all the pieces. And that's when trying to measure things that are a little more subtle, but almost everything is measurable. You just have to figure out how,
Yeah, I think
you
just having
know.
the tip of, if you really wanna see if it's impacted anything, you have to determine and measure. For most people, it may be like, "Well, yeah, like, that just seems so obvious. Let's create a measure," but oftentimes, you're right, they're doing the bare minimum, the easy capture, the things that we can
Mhm.
hold on to. Somebody's already got that.
Yeah.
I know one time you sent me a screenshot or a shot of a picture of me inside a conference room on a screen doing one of my learning data analytics
Mhm.
courses, and you were describing this scenario just now. I flashed to myself in that career essentials course. Basically, the scenario is everybody's focused on the top number, and they're so focused on that top number, and it's like we're trying to find top performance. But if you look at just the top number and you don't look at what it costs to produce, then
Mhm.
what looks like your top number on a line may not be your top number at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and the other point of measurability is if you've determined at an executive level that you want to have some impact on some measure, and you've actually determined how you're going to measure it, where the clarity that will come to you as from executive standpoint is, how do I impact that change? Because somehow I'm going to need to reward that thing because people
yeah,
are going to do what they get paid for.
yeah,
And if you're still getting your bonuses and your payment for to do this thing this way, you're not going to go do the other thing.
yeah. Oh, that's so
So once
good.
you
We can have
figured
a
out that
whole
you want to
episode on
measure
that.
it, once you
Yeah.
figure out what you want to measure, now if you're going to actually affect that change, you're probably going to need to reward that change.
Yeah, wow, that's good. We're gonna end
You
it on
know.
that. I don't think we can top that if we tried. Darby, it's been amazing having you in for some really real talk. I appreciate you being candid and open. I think people need to have real conversations and genuine conversations, and I'm just thrilled and pleased to like have you on here and let other people hear from you. My other little data geek in town. I love you and how
Well,
you
thank
process
you.
information. Yeah, thank
And
you so
I've
much for
enjoyed
doing this
knowing you for
today.
all these years, and I
I
love that we had this
know.
little talk.
And we still we can normalize data together and review
Oh,
diagrams and
it'll
ERDs
be a
anytime.
blast. Yeah.
All right, I'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks. Bye.